Hi again. Okay, so today we are going to talk about things to say and not to say to adoptive parents. So basically, treat an adoptive parent like any other parent. And that means that if you wouldn't say something to a biological parent, don't say it to an adoptive parent. Let's start with the to says and to do's. Now, if you're a friend who's always wanted to be a parent, who they've been working forever to adopt, whether or not they plan to have biological children or not, if they have an adoption come through and they're successful in their adoption and they bring their baby home, treat them like they just gave birth. So if you would normally have a baby shower for your friends, have a baby shower for them. It doesn't matter if the child's a baby or a 10-year-old. Have a party for them. Celebrate them becoming parents, because that's what we do for people when they become pregnant and give birth. So do the same thing for adoptive parents. They became parents. This is a huge, monumental change in their life. So treat them like it, and treat them like you would anyone else. Give them encouragement. When they need the time off, like every parent needs, offer it to them. Offer to come and stay with the kids for a night so they can have a date night. Offer them all the support you would a biological parent. Any person who's just become a new parent knows how stressful it can be, how exciting it can be, how sometimes you want some time to yourself, but also times you want to share. And so give adoptive parents that time with their new child, just like you would any biological parent. Allow them to have that time together as a family unit, to bond and to have that one-on-one time with their child, but also show them that you care. Show them that you love that child as much and as if they gave it birth to themselves. So just don't treat them any differently. Their child is their child. And just encourage them and love them. Tell them they're doing a good job when you see them. Just treat their kids like any other kid. When you see a kid who is clearly adopted or not, our children have special needs, but so just don't come at them first with the questions of adoption and special needs or physical differences. Come at them with, you're doing a really good job, or you have really cute kids, or you know, your kid's really funny, or wow, your daughter's beautiful, or say hello to the children. Treat them like they exist. So actually acknowledge them. Talk to them like you would any other kid, because they are just any other kid. And so obviously I'm speaking from some personal experience. We have people who obviously come to us a lot and speak directly to our daughter's physical difference instead of acknowledging her as just a regular 3-year-old child. And so what I would love for people to do is just come up and say hello to her. Don't speak to me. She's 3.5, almost 4. She understands. She can speak to you. And so speak to her, say hello to her, ask her name, ask her how old she is, treat her like any other 3.5-year-old kid. And that goes for any kid that you can tell maybe looks a little different from their family, is clearly adopted or not adopted, has special needs or physical differences. Treat them like a kid first. And then once you get to know the family and you're close, then you can maybe ask questions about their child. Okay, so next thing, do make the trip. I understand that not everyone who adopts actually has to travel to wherever they go to adopt. But for those of you who actually have family and friends who have either lived in another country for a fostering period or has had to take multiple trips to the country for the adoption, if you are close to that person, so family, close friends, make the trip with that person. Make the trip to visit the kids, to meet the kids. We had a friend, a close friend who's also on our board of directors for our organization, and who also is an ex-sister-in-law of my husband's and mine, who's an incredibly good friend of ours. She actually made the trip out here to visit our kids this year. And so and for entirely the purpose of visiting our children and me and giving me that break and just coming and loving on us. And that was huge. It made me feel valued. It made me feel validated as a parent that my kids mattered, that someone was willing to literally fly across the world just to meet them. It was huge. And so if you have the chance, and I know sometimes it can be expensive, but if you have the chance, fly, travel to meet your new family members or your new friends' kids, because it really means a ton. Okay, now for the don'ts. So basically, use this as a rule when you're talking to adoptive parents. If you would not say it to a person that has biological children, do not say it to someone who has adoptive children. In other words, first question that we get all the time. Who are the real parents? Don't ask that question. Don't ask anything about real families, real parents. The only way, I should back up a step, the only way that you even have a right to ask any questions to people is if you know them. You're either friends or your family, or you've spent some time, maybe you're in a shopping lineup and you've been talking for a while because the lineup's super long, and you sort of gradually, naturally progress into that conversation with the parents. But do not think that it is your right at any point to go up to complete strangers and ask personal questions about their family or their life. You have to understand that people who have adopted children who are visibly different and who are visibly adopted want to spend time with their children in public just like everyone else. We want to have one-on-one time with our kids. We want to have special time. We want to be able to go out to a restaurant. We want to be able to have that time with our children as a family unit without people, complete strangers, coming and interfering just because they want to ask questions about our personal life. Now, if you are friends and family, this is where you only ask questions that you would ask biological family unless the parents start offering information to you. So, again, number one, don't ask who are the real parents, where are the real parents, where's the real family. Referring to real means it takes away from the adoptive parent. It means that you've taken away from them being anything real to these children, and you're some sort of surrogate for the real parents' real family. And that's not fair, and it actually is hurtful to the children and the parents. So you can ask things about if you know, where the children were born, and if you've ever met biological family, if there's biological family present. But again, this has to come after you already know these people and they're your friends or your family, and you trust them, or you've built some sort of rapport and connection and relationship with these people. Okay, question number 2 that you should never ask adoptive parents. Are you going to have any of your own? That question is so offensive for so many reasons. First of all, it implies that the children they have are not their own, and that their adoptive children don't matter or count as much as biological children. Some people don't have biological children because they can't. Some people have chosen not to. Regardless, in either situation, that's a really personal question, and framing it in the sense of your biological children would trump adoptive children. A lot of people do it, and you don't even realize you're doing it necessarily, but just be careful of how you ask those questions. But, I mean, a better way to maybe ask that question would just be, are you having any more children? Do you plan on adding more children to your family? Because that could be adoptive or biological, and that allows the parents to answer however they want. That means that they can answer, yeah, actually, you know, we're trying to have a biological child, or actually we're in the process to adopt again. It allows them to open it up rather than you framing it in a way that implies that biological children are the only other option. Here's another thing that people say all the time that you should try to avoid. Saying things like, oh, they're so lucky to have you. They're so lucky that you found them. They're so lucky to be in your family. It's just not true. You would never say that to a biological child. You would never say, oh, they're so lucky to have you or to be in your family. They're so lucky that they get to be in your family. Because luck has nothing to do with it. If you believe in anything bigger than ourselves, whether that's God or a greater force in the universe that brings things together that are supposed to be, and that everything is sort of planned to a point, you believe that children are put in families where they belong. And so adopted children belong in those families just as much as biological children. And so they're not lucky to have us. They were meant to have us, and we were meant to have them, just like a biological child. And also, another don't. Do not feel like it is your place to offer advice when it comes to the implications of having a child in a mixed culture or mixed ethnic family. I have talked to people and had people respond to some of my videos that I've posted about some of the judgment that they feel they get from people, not even from other ethnicities, from their own ethnic backgrounds, who judge them for adopting children from different countries and different ethnicities, and what that's going to do culturally for the child, and how you're not teaching them, how it's impossible teach them their own culture and to expose them to their own culture, and therefore you're somehow damaging the child. And the truth is, as adoptive parents, we have thought all of this through. We know that there are risks involved. We know how hard it is going to be to expose our children to their culture and to make them feel well-rounded and to be able to identify fully with who they are. Now, we know that. If you know that, just take it for granted that we've also thought it through, and we've come up with plans, and that we know as adoptive parents how we're going to tackle those issues. Don't feel like it's something that you have to voice, because it's really not. It comes across as judgmental, and it's often very hurtful. And regardless of how people react, whether they do it in a nice way or not, deep down it's hurtful to know that people are judging you without any context for your family often. And that they see something and they think that they have the right opinion, and then therefore they come at you. And it's terrible. So please don't. And then the last thing on my list of things not to say to people is thank you for loving them, or thank you for caring for them, or it puts the child into a charity case where that child has sort of is looked at as not as worthy of love, I guess, or that they that it's a privilege that they've earned your love. And so you're thanking them. You would never go up to a biological parent and say to them, thank you for loving your child. Of course I love my child. It's my child. It seems like a very obvious thing, but people say that a lot. Thank you for caring for them. Thank you for having the heart to care for them. And I know 99% of the time those comments come from a really good place and a really good heart. What they don't realize is that it makes you feel like they're saying your children weren't necessarily lovable, or that it wasn't a given that they would be loved or taken into a family, and therefore you deserve accolades and gratitude for loving your own children. It also comes from a place of people really truly not seeing them as your children, that you're sort of a surrogate for the parents. And so then again, they're thanking you almost for for your charity or your love towards these children who wouldn't have had it. And so it can come across a little bit hard. For me personally, it just sort of makes me feel like they're sort of looking at my kids and saying that they wouldn't necessarily have had the love if I didn't love them, which I think is untrue. And so, well, I know is untrue. Basically, unless you are close to someone or you've developed some sort of rapport with them and relationship with them, do not think that you can walk up to anyone and start a conversation with personal questions about their family and their children. It just can't happen. Just remember, don't ask questions that you would never ask of a biological parent. Use that as your filter when you're thinking of questions to ask them. Treat them like any other new parent. Be excited for them. Give them the encouragement and the celebrations that they deserve, just like any new parent deserves. Side note, I am not saying this, that my friends and family throw any sort of parties for us when we come home. We've had our children now for almost a year and a half. That sort of grace window period of celebration has passed. But for a lot of people, when they first come home, they're really, really excited. And so treat them like that. And just love adoptive families like you would any other family, and treat them like any other family. And just wait for the adoptive parents to sort of take the lead on the conversation as to where they feel comfortable taking it. And if they don't want to answer a question or they don't feel comfortable, respect that and understand that there's probably a reason why they don't want to share that information. It might be painful for them, or it might be to protect their children. And just respect that as their parents making decisions for their children, just like any other decision we make, that the information given to people is up to the parents. And so if you ask someone in public a question and they say, I'd rather not say, or it's not a topic I'd want to discuss, don't become upset. Don't become angry or hostile towards them. Just understand that they're doing the best they can to protect their children and to love their children. Anyway, that's all for today. Talk to you next time.